Of all this, I'll tell you, I have so many stories. You won't have to read my book by the time you finish telling the stories. There's a little girl named Angelina. I'm going to tell you about her. So she's in my book, and she's one of the first. She was 1 year old when she came to me, maybe just a hair over one. She was going to the children's hospital. She had at the time it was called Snyder's, it's now Cohen's, but she had a genetic disorder called ringed 22nd chromosome disease. Now, I had just gotten the internet, I had just gotten a computer, and I try to know what it is that a person is coming in with so that I can understand it in my head. Because when I work, even though I channel from God, from whoever is giving me the energy, I believe Jesus primarily works through me, particularly. But wherever it's coming from, I use my mind and I think while I'm working. I don't know that I have to, okay? But it occupies my mind while I'm working, and I think about the disease and how I would fix it, as if I were a doctor. So my mind likes to know what it's about. So I looked up this genetic disorder, but there were so many variations that I couldn't wrap myself around it. This little girl was already had a kidney removed. She had a bladder issue that something had to be reattached. There was a lot of physical things. She could not swallow. She couldn't have a bowel movement. She couldn't stand. She had no muscle control. Her chin drooped. Her eyes drooped. She was always in pain. So she cried all the time. So the dad had to take off from work in order to bring her here because the mom always had to hold her. She couldn't even go in a car seat because she was always in pain. So they came in, and this is what it looked like to me. It looked like cerebral palsy. That's how I was viewing it. So I asked them. They told me as much as they could tell me. And I can't ask any questions of a 1-year-old. So I have to just trust and do the work. So the mom sat in the chair. She held the child. She held Angelina, and I remember she was hiding from me. She was sticking her head in her mother's shoulder. And I just knelt on the floor, and I touched her from the top of her head down her spine. Okay? And I just did this, and I asked the energy to come through. And the mother told me that whatever I was doing was going through the child and into her, because she could feel the heat coming into her body. So after about 10 minutes, I stepped away, and Angelina started to jump up and down on her mother's lap. Now, mind you, I don't know that she can't do this. Okay? I'd never seen, she was just holding her the whole time. She's jumping up and down, but she was throwing her head back and laughing hysterically like little kids do. And now I've got two parents in tears. So they said, you don't understand. She can't do this. She couldn't do this for 10 seconds. She can't support her own weight. But this had happened. This occurred. Now, not only did that occur, her leg muscles, her throat muscles, her rectal muscles, and her arm muscles, everything almost like just popped. Okay? Now, when you're born with a genetic illness, you have... you get occupational, the state supplies you with therapists every day. You have occupational therapy, you have speech therapy, you have physical therapy. They come in and they work with the child. It's mandated. Now, her therapist the next day couldn't understand what happened. How did this happen? So that was the first time I saw her. They brought her back 2 months later. She was supposed to get surgery for her bladder. Now, they did the pre-surgical testing at LIJ, or at Schneider's at the time, and then they brought her here. She was asleep. So I said, let her sleep. This way she's not afraid of me, and I could just work on her while she's asleep. So they laid her on the couch. I began to work. I finished. I sat down. We were talking, and then she woke up. So the mom turned her over and was changing her diaper. She went to pick her up, and I said, wait. Normally, when you have little kids, and this is down the road for you guys, what you do is you let them hold your thumb. Yeah, hopefully. You let them hold your thumbs, and they pull themselves up. Okay? And that's, you can pick them up, but oftentimes this is what we do, and we let them pull themselves up. So I said, why don't you see if she can pull herself up? Because up till that point in time, if you sat her in the corner of the furniture, she would have fell over. She would just fall back and forth. So her spine still had no strength. So she did, and she pulled herself up. So I picked her up then, and I walked her around the room. And in the other room, I have pictures very high up. My husband built the frames up on the top of the wall. So she was looking at the pictures, and I showed them that she was doing it on her own. I moved my hand away from her neck and her back and let them see that she was utilizing. So her spine completely, all of that stuff fixed itself that day. Now it goes one step further. A few months later, and they never call me. Nobody ever calls me and tells me anything, but I have to accept that because that's part of faith. Okay, that's part of ego. If I worry about what happens to people, then I'm thinking in an ego way, and I can't do that. I have to trust that what I'm doing is the right thing. I have complete and total blind faith, and that's how I operate. So they called me a few months later, and she called me for her older child. He was in kindergarten. He was suffering nightmares. They're called night terrors, and they asked me to come. So I came. He was in kindergarten. So he was still in school. He didn't get off the bus yet. I got there a few minutes early. So I came in, and I was very happy to see Angelina sitting on the floor, playing with toys all by herself. She got up. She, what we call, cruised the furniture. She held on to the entertainment unit and came all the way around, and she stopped at me. And so she was standing between my legs, and I said, as long as she's here, let me give her what I've got while I'm waiting for the little boy. So I put more energy into her, a healing energy into her. And again, I don't hear. You know, they don't call me up and tell me anything. But a couple months later, they called me again. Worked with the little boy, and they called me up, and they asked me to come to see the father-in-law and mother-in-law for 2 different diseases. While she had me on the phone, she told me that night when she changed Angelina for bed, I did not know that she had a circulation issue and that her skin was purple. She changed her diaper in front of me, but I wasn't looking at it. Yeah. Her feet, she said her feet, she was born with purple feet. And she said they were as pink could be when she went to bed. And, you know, so they moved away to Florida. The last I heard, she was 5 years old and doing fine. And I'm sure not everything was fixed, but that all has to do with lessons for people. You know, the family needed to remember about faith. Okay, they really had to hold on to faith. And that was part of the lesson. Okay, when little children get sick, a lot of people blame God right away. And when little children die, that's not the case. It's very important that other people learn lessons, that people maybe learn to come back to faith, or maybe people learn to fix problems between them. I had a little boy also in Schneider's before that. No, maybe after that. He was 4, and he had leukemia as well, but a doctor accidentally overdosed him on chemo. They read the wrong weight, and chemo goes by weight, and they doubled it. Oh, God. And he was 2 hours shy of a respirator when I got there. And needless to say, he did not go on the respirator, and he is now, I think he's graduated high school, he's a football player, you know, everything worked out for him. But it was the parents, and I sat the parents down, and I said, listen to me, this is what I believe, okay? I believe this is about you guys. This is not about him. He didn't do anything wrong, okay? He didn't create this in his life. He didn't create disease. Tell me what's going on with you. And, you know, they were at odds with each other, and I said, you need to fix, you know, and this is about you guys. This is not about him. And they did. They did what they were supposed to do. They worked on it, they fixed it, and everything is right with the world. It worked out for them. Okay? I have other stories that are the opposite, where the parents wouldn't, and lost their child in the interim. So, you know, I look at the big picture. There's a lot more to what goes on than just a single facet. It's much larger than we think. Okay, so probably enough story. I could keep you here all day long. And I have story upon story upon story upon story. And it's all fascinating. It's just as fascinating to me. Okay, because it boggles my mind when someone, you know, the physical things that I actually see, which I mentioned a few to you already. I remember my son was a soccer coach, and he brought a player in here who had been cleated, and he had a terrible infection. He didn't have insurance. He was from another country, And I guess maybe he didn't go to the infirmary or do what he should have done, but it was now out of control. He had a huge infection on his leg. And I brought him into the dining room at the time, and everybody was chatting in the living room, and I said, let me see what you've got. And he pulled up his pants leg, and what a mess. And it was burning hot, it was bright red, and it was about that big around the front of his leg going into the sides. And it was very, very, very infected. So, again, don't know why it happens. I can only explain that it's, it's a higher power, and if you believe enough, and even if you don't, it'll happen. And I just watched it close. The red just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller until it was no more. So, can't even begin to tell you the whys and the wherefores. I just know the is. Okay, and that's and does everyone heal? No, not everybody heals. Sometimes somebody comes in here with 3 things wrong with them, and they'll go out with only 1 left. 2 go away. Do they use the tools that I give them when they leave? Not always. I tell them, I'm handing you the tools. There's information that I'm teaching you about being positive, about letting go of fear, about loving yourself. Okay, getting into balance with your life and the people, standing up for yourself. If it means standing up for yourself to somebody, sometimes that's something that you have to do. There's lessons in everything. To me, everything is about lessons, learning lessons. We're here. This is Earth School. This is what we're supposed to be learning. This is the toughest planet. Okay, all the lessons are here, and they're all being poured out, and we have to learn them. Okay, but the bottom line to all of it is to be a good Christian. That's what it comes down to. Everything is about service, helping others, being kind, okay? That's what I teach in my classroom. I want everybody to learn balance here. Their psychic abilities come out when you meditate. Everyone has natural gifts. I believe this as well. I believe we all came here with a natural gift of some kind, okay? And meditation is what brings that forth. And the more you meditate and the more you balance, the quicker the gift comes forward, whether it be a healing gift or a psychic ability or mediumship like your mom. Automatic writing, which is another form of writing from spirit. The pen takes off. It's not your handwriting. Words come out, 8 pages at a time. Poetry comes out. It's all magnificently beautiful, but it's all directed by spirit. So all of that happens in this room. But it's all part of balance. And balance creates healing. So everything that I do is all incorporated in healing. I also put people under hypnosis. I take them into what I call past lives. It isn't necessarily believed by many religions. It wasn't a belief of mine until I did it accidentally, and I found out that that was not the case. And now I help people heal by taking them into their past lifetimes. Because if you carry something over, this is the way that it works. You live other lifetimes, lessons you don't learn, you carry over into this lifetime. And then you have some fears and phobias or certain issues with a particular person that maybe you traveled with in another lifetime. And I can take people there. And when I take them there, we eliminate the problem. So I've seen physical healings take place as well as emotional healings take place. So I actually have 4 of them to do this week. But it's if I can't heal you this way, in this room, by teaching you what I have to teach you and then using energy work on you, and if you're really doing the work and nothing's helping, then you need to then come to the regression chair, and we need to find it. We need to find where it originated. And then when we do, it goes away. So I had promise this is the last story.
I'm not mad at the stories.
I had a young man come to me. He had been injured on the job. He was about between 30 and 33 years old. I think I met him at 30. Nothing would heal. There was always a complication. He injured his leg. Now, this young gentleman loved to fly. He was taking flying lessons, and now he couldn't do this anymore. He became very depressed. He was in and out of hospitals all the time. He couldn't work. He was on disability. dating was out. Everything was out. He was unhappy. He was in pain. He was miserable. Nothing would